We are going to begin tonight with another progressive candidate winning a big Democratic primary. This time, it was in a closely watched race for the Michigan Senate seat. Progressive candidate Abdul El-Sayed narrowly defeated the more moderate, establishment-backed candidate Haley Stevens by a single percentage point. The former state health official's platform includes Medicare for all. He's also been an outspoken critic of the war in Gaza. Progressives have praised El-Sayed's victory despite being out-fundraised by Stevens 10-1. Now he's looking to rally the party around his nomination.
But right now, as bitter and as divisive and as cynical as the campaign against us might have been, I want us to realize that there is so much more that unites us now.
Prominent progressives, including Representative Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez and Vermont Senator Bernie Sanders, had backed El-Sayed in the primary.
What happened in Michigan yesterday is literally unprecedented in modern American history. What Abdul had to do is take on the entire Michigan Democratic establishment.
El-Sayed's victory now sets the stage for a battle against former Republican Congressman Mike Rogers in this year's midterm elections, and the winner could ultimately play a pivotal role in helping their party secure control of the upper chamber. The Trump-backed candidate has been quick to criticize El-Sayed's progressive policies.
The whole country is looking at us here in Michigan. They're looking at you. And they're hoping we do everything that we can do together to make sure that we stop this in its tracks.
President Trump took to Truth Social, saying in part, great news for the Republican Party. El-Sayed, a communist loser who hates Jews and Israel, is the projected winner in his race. Senate Majority Leader Thune says he believes the party is in a, quote, pretty good spot given the contrast between the two candidates and what he's calling the Democrats' extreme radical choice. CBS News senior White House and political correspondent Ed O'Keefe has more.
Michigan Democratic U.S. Senate nominee Abdul El-Sayed has two big challenges now facing him. First, he's got to unite the Democratic Party in this state behind him after a narrow victory that was declared early this morning. He began the day by rallying with one of his former opponents and the state party chairman as they try to demonstrate that Democrats and those opposed to President Trump and Republicans who control Congress need to get together in the next 13 weeks to defeat the former Republican Congressman Mike Rogers. At least 40, closer to $60 million already pledged to Rogers as he launches his general election bid. He calls El-Sayed an extremist, someone too extreme for Michigan, and is trying to associate him more closely with Democratic socialists, a handful of which won congressional primaries here in Michigan last night, and also those across the country. El-Sayed campaigns with socialist leaders like Bernie Sanders and Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez and Rashida Tlaib, a congresswoman from here in the Detroit area, but he says he's not a socialist, he's a capitalist. Whether that'll matter or not to voters remains to be seen. Expect a lot of debate in this general election over the future of health care and affordability, and watch Democrats try to make a case against Rogers, who was a congressman during the George W. Bush presidency, who supported the Iraq War. The argument will be that he was part of setting in motion the wars in Iraq and Afghanistan and the conflict that President Trump sparked in Iran that most Americans are opposed to. Back to you.
Ed O'Keefe, thanks. Let's bring in CBS News Executive Director of Elections and Surveys, Anthony Salvanto. So this race was really close. Again, we've talked about how he was out fundraised 10-1. So how did he pull this off?
Well, Ed mentioned it took me until this morning to make the projection. Michigan often unfolds slowly in the sense of counting their ballots. And so what we saw was El-Sayed's lead, which, as you can see here, is just about 15,000 votes out of this 1.5 million cast. So that underlines what you said there about close. The story there, we really were waiting and watching, and I'll show you a map here from our friends at Vote Hub. We're looking at Detroit and Wayne County in that area, finally waiting for that to fill in. That's really important because, of course, there's so many Democrats there in and around Detroit. But the other part of the story was comparing this pattern to even going back 10 years to when Bernie Sanders defeated Hillary Clinton in Michigan. And what you see is Bernie Sanders won more counties here, but also these counties here that went to Hillary Clinton from Detroit up to Flint, they were much more narrow and often went to Stevens in this case. To the larger point of now, can El-Sayed unite the party? When we get to the general, that's going to be a story of both persuasion and, of course, Democratic turnout. In order to do that, those are the metrics we'll be watching going forward.
Did anything surprise you about turnout yesterday?
Well, I don't know that necessarily El-Sayed got all of the young voters that his campaign was perhaps expecting to turn out. That might be how you see a pattern like this. But the other thing I want to emphasize is, as we do look forward again, where Michigan stands amid all the battlegrounds we'll be watching, it's going to be central, both in the Senate and, frankly, on the House side. So very quickly, you see these are the battlegrounds. Michigan here, which is a toss-up. Democrats trying to pick off a couple of other Republican red states. And then I'm also going to show you, just to mention the House, because that's going to be really closely watched too. You've got a handful of House seats which are in Michigan we suspect are going to be competitive. And quite frankly, there aren't a lot of them coast to coast. Again, a lot of roads are going to run through Michigan.
All right, Anthony Salvanto, thank you so much.